Hello, everyone. Thank you to the organizing committee and to those of you who are watching this presentation. Within the context of this conference's theme, Precepts and Norms of Female Behavior in Literature, Culture, and Society, I will focus on gender, advertising, and transnational communication as I discuss stereotyping and unstereotyping femininity in transnational advertising, and more specifically the case of Carolina Herrera's Good Girl, a popular women's fragrance. The commercials I analyzed generally appeared in English untranslated, neither dubbed nor subtitled, in different countries around the world. Today, I will concentrate on one spot from the fragrance's 2016 campaign, which I will call Good Girl Commercial 1, as well as one spot from its 2022 campaign, Good Girl Commercial 2. In addition, I will explore two spots for the Carolina Herrera men's fragrance Bad Boy, namely one from the fragrance's 2019 campaign, Bad Boy Commercial 1, and one from its 2022 campaign, Bad Boy Commercial 2. Let me now provide you with some background information about the promoted products, both of which are internationally popular fragrances by the Carolina Herrera brand. Good Girl, a perfume for women, was launched in 2016 and advertised as the biggest blockbuster for the brand's fragrance business. It remains the brand's most successful fragrance to date, as well as one of the top 3 fragrances in the world. Bad Boy, the counterpart fragrance for men, was launched in 2019 and intended to help the Carolina Herrera brand become a billion-euro brand. According to the official website of the company, Good Girl is intended to represent the duality of the modern woman and every different side of a woman, while Bad Boy presents a new icon of masculinity and a fresh, new, multifaceted masculinity. Therefore, the conceptualization of Good Girl and Bad Boy seem to unstereotype femininity and masculinity in theory, but let us find out what happens in practice, in the actual spots. First, let us watch Good Girl Commercial 1.
Baby, bad, bad thing.
Good Girl, a new feminine fragrance by Carolina Herrera.
The physical appearance and artifacts of the protagonist contribute to her dynamic representation. The beautiful woman seems to control the world while walking the post-rain streets of New York City in her impressive long black gown with a high leg slit. The loud clatter of her stiletto heels supernaturally incites chaos, causing tables to turn upside down, cars to crash, and newspapers to scatter. Although the commercial promotes a fragrance and not shoes, the stilettos play a crucial role in the spot, not only as a woman's footwear, but also and more importantly, as an element of the product design. Specifically, the protagonist's power is symbolized through the design of the fragrance bottle, which is shaped like a stiletto heel. However, the visual metonymy of a stiletto heel standing for a dynamic woman can be considered problematic owing to its phallic symbolism. Historically, high heels have been considered a semiotic symbol for the phallus connected with stylishness, fetishness, and eroticism. In other words, not only are high heels considered to accentuate women's bodies and sexuality, transmitting powerful and highly charged sexual signals, they are also often perceived as fetishes, namely signs that evoke devotion to themselves, objects or body parts through which sexual fantasies are played out. Consequently, the high heels in the sport may contribute more to the women's hypersexualization and objectification than to her own empowerment. Indeed, the emphatic connection of women with high heels seems to reflect men's perspectives and desires and reinforces the notion of the perfect provocateur, namely the portrayal of a woman in advertising as noticeably attractive and seductive. In other words, this connection constructs a very specific view on femininity, that is, emphasized femininity, that closely links women's power with their sexiness, failing to provide adequate space for women to define their own power, sexuality, and femininity. In addition, since the stiletto heel may be considered metonymically, illustrating the part, the woman's shoe, instead of the whole, the woman, this metonymy may undermine women's autonomy and integrity, and thus decrease their power instead of increasing it, since the power is attributed to the shoe rather than the woman. This sense that the woman is not presented as a whole in the spot is also conveyed through the strong emphasis on the woman's lower body, particularly her long legs and stiletto heels. In fact, within a 10-second time frame, the viewer sees the woman's lower body in isolation 5 times. This intense cinematographic emphasis on the protagonist's legs and heels suggests a hypersexualized presentation of the woman, filtered by a man's perspective, an instance of the male gaze phenomenon. Furthermore, we see an example of what Kaufman calls feminine touch in advertising, as the protagonist touches herself, making her appear gentler. More specifically, this is an instance of women's self-touching, which Kaufman describes as an act readable as conveying a sense of one's body being a delicate and precious thing. The commercial's ending clearly illustrates how femininity is eventually stereotyped rather than unstereotyped. Specifically, the woman goes on to find the man. Her focus is thus on the destination, the man, and the objective, to seduce the man. The woman's posture recalls Kaufman's ritualization of subordination, expressed through her body count and head cant, or the tilting or bending of her body and head, which suggests anticipation of the man's action over her own action. Similarly, her posture reflects Kaufman's licensed withdrawal, according to which women in advertising are frequently depicted engaged in involvements which remove them psychologically from the social situation at large, leaving them unoriented and dependent on the protectiveness and goodwill of others, as Kaufman has observed. Let us now move on to the analysis on the verbal level. As the product name Good Girl, as well as the commercial's tagline, It's so good to be bad, reveal, the commercial aims to play with the notions of goodness and badness in relation to femininity. Bound by stereotypical social expectations, the product name characterizes girls as good, but the tagline seems to blend goodness and badness playfully. In the case of Good Girl Commercial 1, the tagline could be interpreted as follows. Since it's so good to be bad, the woman who is good, as her characterization as Good Girl conveys, should be both good and bad. Of course, the terms good and bad have a very broad range of interpretations, including ironic undertones. Therefore, a single absolute interpretation cannot be provided. Besides, suggestibility and ambiguity are strategically used in advertising to increase the spot's effectiveness and in turn the product sales, as Beasley and Danesi have also noted. So let us move on to Good Girl Commercial 2. Let us first watch the spot.
Good Girl, the feminine fragrance, Carolina Herrera.
In this spot, the viewer again sees the white American supermodel Carly Kloss, who also stars in Good Girl Commercial 1, this time accompanied by the Black American plus-sized model Precious Lee, the Danish model Olivia Vinton, the Dominican American model Delone, and the Asian Canadian model Ash Fu. The 5 culturally and ethnically diverse women are seen walking next to each other as they are joined by many more women, all walking the New York City streets together in celebration under a night sky filled with fireworks. This depiction of different women working together confidently evokes a strong sense of personal empowerment that embraces individuality, as well as a sense of solidarity among women that enhances their mutual support. However, it is interesting to also note that although the spot includes more than one protagonist, the stereotypically beautiful model with light skin, blonde hair, and blue eyes seems to dominate the scene as the main protagonist throughout the commercial. In particular, she appears on screen for much longer than the other characters and is always positioned front and center when accompanied by them. We will now go on to Bad Boy Commercial 1. Let us first watch the spot.
Mad thing. You ever try with all your heart and soul to get your lover back to you?
Bad Boy, the new masculine fragrance by Carolina Herrera.
In this spot, the handsome man's attire of a black suit, white shirt, and black shoes is also formal and elegant, but the man seems to control the world, even the natural phenomenon of lightning bolts, through his mere presence rather than a specific accessory like the stiletto heels in Good Girl Commercial 1. His walking through the post-rain streets of New York City has destructive results such as flowers exploding and a car crashing. The Bad Boy fragrance is housed in a lightning bolt-shaped bottle that seems to defy gravity. The visual metaphor of a striking lightning bolt standing for a dynamic man is self-explanatory, as opposed to the problematic visual metonymy of a stiletto heel standing for a dynamic woman. It cannot be ignored that a lightning bolt is an imposing, natural phenomenon that occurs independently of human action, while a stiletto heel is an accessory, a cultural object made by people and chosen, or not, to be worn. This difference in the bottle's designs suggests that men's power is natural and intrinsic, related to nature, and thus self-evident and expected, while women's power is artificial, constructed, and extrinsic, related to culture, and thus indefinite and questionable. In juxtaposition to the objectifying and compartmentalizing presentation of the woman in Good Girl Commercial 1, the man in Bad Boy Commercial 1 is almost always presented as a whole, with his face, head, and torso visible almost throughout the spot, with the exception of only 2 instances in which his upper body cannot be seen. Moreover, in contrast to the woman's hypersexualized yet softened representation, the man's representation, also sexualized but to a lesser degree, is wilder, more severe, and more aggressive. Therefore, he does not touch himself like the woman does. In the end of the spot, the man is seen driving his car in a carefree manner and walking assertively, focusing on the journey. These actions convey a sense of exploration, adventure, and mystery, since the man's destination and objective are not ultimately revealed. As regards the analysis on the verbal level, both the product name, Bad Boy, and the commercial's tagline, It's So Good to Be Bad, reveal that the spot aims to play with the notions of goodness and badness in relation to masculinity. In the case of Bad Boy Commercial 1, the tagline may sound more problematic when interpreted as follows. Since it's so good to be bad, the man, who is bad, as his characterization as Bad Boy conveys, should actually only be bad, thus normalizing toxic masculinity. Let us now watch the last spot, Bad Boy Commercial 2.
Monday night, New York City, heard it going down. Friday night, midnight, Atlantic City, slash machines, ding 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 when they ring off. Lock the doors, that's when ghosts just Cheetos.
I roll out, we roll on dubs, rolling above the theater unit, we controlling the club like a BT commercial. I'm wrapping them up.
Let me tell you what they say when I'm pulling up patrols. They say,
Bad Boy, the masculine fragrance, Carolina Herrera.
The four men participate in various activities in the New York City streets, including dancing and playing football. Comparing Bad Boy Commercial 2 and Good Girl Commercial 2, both produced in 2022, it is crucial to mention that the activities depicted are worlds apart. In Good Girl Commercial 2, the women primarily walk, while in Bad Boy Commercial 2, the men perform diverse activities together that show their bonding. For this reason, the presence of the main protagonist in Bad Boy Commercial 2 seems to be less dominating than the presence of the equivalent main protagonist in Good Girl Commercial 2. In conclusion, although the conceptualization of Good Girl and Bad Boy seems to unstereotype femininity in theory, the commercials foster global gender cliches, stereotyping femininity in practice. Indeed, Good Girl Commercial 2, created at the beginning of the 2020s, includes more feminist representations of women than Good Girl Commercial 1, created before the worldwide popularization of the Me Too movement in 2017. Yet, the newer spot also contains stereotypical depictions of women. This suggests that fully unstereotyping femininity in the realm of advertising is an ongoing process with gradual progress. However, depicting diverse and self-confident characters, regardless of their gender, while avoiding the stereotyping of women and men through the difference paradigm, could boost the gender-inclusive profile of the Carolina Herrera brand in future campaigns. And thank you very much for your attention.